right, hello and welcome back finally at Terps Talk. It's been a few weeks. Been busy doing some baseball stuff, and finally got back on air to talk about some Terps. We finally have a good amount of stuff to talk about. Haven't had a lot past weeks, but there's been all kinds of offers thrown around, transfer talks, and Pishon transferred, Len's going pro. So we got plenty of stuff to talk about this week. Bring in Scott from Terps Nation again, and I want to thank him for having him on. Hopefully, we can cut it shorter than we did last time. We went for a solid hour and 15 minutes last time, so hopefully we can go a little quicker than that this time. We actually got.
Uh, I mean, there had been, some talk about it by some people, but I mean, just being honest, I think it was just speculation and guessing for the most part. Uh, I mean, he's always seemed pretty happy here. Uh, Personally, I was a little bit surprised, especially considering, the situation at the point guard position going forward next year. He played fairly well down the stretch. So I mean, I was personally a little surprised, but just looking at how things played out with him this year and with the injuries, it's not all that surprising. And, and if he's got, family that's, um, got some health issues, it makes sense. So, I mean, you'd have to think so. But that said, I mean, he was actually getting a little bit more playing time maybe and actually playing a little bit more productively down the stretch as opposed to in the middle of the season. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I almost feel like it could have been, the suspension. Who knows what went on there? Really, it's kind of behind closed doors thing. But clearly something happened between the two of them that it just didn't work out.
Everything I had heard, when I was actually there the day they announced that at the media session, and from what everything I had heard, people talk about, it had pretty much been that they had gotten into an argument about something on the court. I mean, obviously that's not super official or anything like that, but all the whispers I had heard is that they had had a sort of a yelling match on the court. So you might be right there. It could have been just that could have pushed him over the edge, and along with playing time and freshmen coming in and him being a Gary guy to begin with. So I guess going from there, I mean, you have to think, especially if he's going to Southern California, his transfer options are going to be slim. I mean, I know me and you talked about USC. Obviously, I don't think UCLA has any interest in Bijan. You got to think of some other small state, maybe Fresno State. I don't know. I'm drawing blanks on who else maybe would want him out there. I mean, do you have any ideas?
I mean, I heard that there was a visit planned, set up, I believe, with him and Enfield. So I mean, I would think there's got to be some mutual interest with SC. You got a new coach building a new program. And, he's a left coast guy, so I could see them starting over and maybe wanting to add another point guard for some depth. But I mean, outside of SC, I'm just honestly not sure. You got some smaller schools out there, you know, outside the LA area, like maybe a Pepperdine or someone like that. But it's in the area. It's going to be slim pickings. And like you said, I mean, UCLA, it's probably not an option for him.
To a lot of people, and you talk about schools in that area, and you don't think about really basketball. You think of baseball. You got all the smaller schools who really only put baseball teams out in the field, and I just don't think that's going to be somewhere for Pishon to go. But it remains to be seen. Or maybe there's someone we're not thinking of right now. Maybe Enfield wants to give Pishon a chance, not have a bunch of freshmen come in and play at SC. I honestly don't even know what their point guard or guard situation in general is like over there, but. You have to think. I mean, that's kind of a long shot too at SC. So we'll see. Let's go ahead and talk about one other Maryland guy leaving, Alex Len. Obviously, he's been talked about pretty much all season, whether it's been good or bad, or indifferent. Who Alex Len's kind of been a topic of discussion all year for Maryland. So, I mean, I'm curious to see where you think he fits in the NBA, and maybe who you think what a team that he fits in well with.
I mean, as far as him in the NBA right now, I mean, I've seen some people say this, and I kind of tend to agree with it, but I think his skill set could actually translate better to the next level. I mean, he's got a real good looking stroke from 12 to 15 feet. He's got some moves down on the post. He's real active on the defensive end. Disrupts a lot of shots, blocks a lot of shots. He's got great footwork. So while and this as well, he seemed to play up to the competition in college. So, maybe playing against guys that, are like Nerlens Noel and Mason Plumlee night in and night out or what Alex Len needs. I think he's got the skill set and the talents to be productive at the next level. I think the question for him is going to be, can he bring the intensity night in, night out, both on the offensive and defensive end? That said, teams he fits in with, I mean, I'm not really sure. One team I've seen that I've heard likes him a lot if, he was there and they have the pick is Oklahoma City. They had that trade a couple years ago for Perkins, and, they don't have a whole lot of depth down low inside. So, I mean, I could definitely see him fitting in with them. They like to get up and down the court, and he runs the floor well. So that's one team, that I've seen him linked with. I mean, that would honestly be a dream scenario for anyone, getting a chance to play with Kevin Durant. I mean, I think that would be a good fit.
I mean, what would you think of how he would fit in with a team like the Wizards?
I mean, I think he'd fit in well. It's kind of the same thing. You got a point guard like John Wall that can get up and down the court. He runs the floor well. Obviously, the Wizards need a big man, but they have so many other needs. And, where they're likely to pick, I mean, I would guess they're probably going to end up taking someone on the wing, maybe a power forward. I just don't know. They still have Nene, so I don't know if, a center is really what they're going to be going for in this draft. But I mean, it's kind of similar style. They get up and down the floor, and they got a point guard that can really move the ball. So I think, he could be a good fit in Washington as well. Well, I mean, not just having a guy go on lottery per se, but for Turgeon now, you've now had a guy at Maryland in your first couple of years go lottery, and it's the second center you've had in the NBA. So now he can sell big men not only on Len, but on Jordan, DeAndre Jordan with the Clippers, who's part of Lob City playing with Chris Paul and those guys. All of a sudden, if you're a big man, you see what big men have done under Turgeon, gone on to do, maybe possibly are doing and could do in the NBA. I would think as a center, that's really attractive. And I would guess he's using that to sell guys, like Good Luck Okanobo and Diamond Stone and guys like that.
So let's move on now. Obviously, I think a lot of people think that Maryland needs a transfer guard and possibly a big man. I don't know if we'll get the big man, but I think there's a few more guard options out there for next year. So a couple of names that are being thrown out there a lot right now are Eli Carter and Antonio Barton. So let's talk about those guys real quick. I know you're a Baltimore guy, so I'm sure you've seen Barton. What did you think of his game when he was at Lake Clifton?
I mean, when both Barton brothers were there at Clifton, I mean, I was personally a huge fan of both their games. His brother's skinny, but could really fill it up. And, while some people, when Maryland was recruiting them, just kind of looked at Antonio as just kind of a throw-in, part of a package deal. I mean, I honestly thought he was a good point guard, at Lake Clifton in high school. Um, and, they had the year apart where Will was in New England. But, I mean, Antonio's a good player. I think he's a good guard. He put up decent numbers, backing up Joe Jackson in Memphis last year. So I think he's definitely a guy that can come in and contribute. And it's a position that Maryland desperately needs help. So, if Antonio's a guy that wants to be in this program and he can come in and contribute immediately, Maryland needs all the ball handlers they can get. I think that's evident to anyone that watched Maryland play last year.
Definitely. I mean, have you heard, I haven't heard much of the way of who's else is Barton is considering. I mean, have you heard anyone else who he might be interested in?
I mean, I haven't really heard anyone else yet. I haven't really looked into it much, but I mean, he's made it very clear that he plans on coming back home. So, I mean, that said, you'd think the options are pretty much, maybe a Maryland, a Loyola, someone like that. And he's done it at a high enough level that I think Maryland's definitely an option for him. So, could he stay in Baltimore? Yes. Do I think Maryland's an option? Absolutely. It's close enough to Baltimore that I think it's definitely a school that he's interested in. I think the main question is going to be, is Maryland interested in him?
Compared him to Terrell Stoglin, where he's a volume scorer. I think that's probably a decent comparison. Carter might be a little bit bigger, a little bit better player, just because of size more than anything. But I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Carter. I mean, obviously I knew who he was, but I hadn't heard much about him until Maryland started talking transfer with him. Obviously, he's got a lot of other big suitors out there with Florida and Memphis and some other schools. I mean, do you know much about Carter?
Yeah, I mean, I saw him play in high school, so I watched him some at Rutgers. I mean, he's kind of in the mold of a lot of the guards Maryland already has. He's a shooting guard / combo. He shoots the ball pretty well. One thing that I've always felt watching him that which kind of surprised me that Maryland, is interested in him is he's kind of been turnover prone and he likes to, kind of hunt for his shot. And, that's kind of been Maryland's, Achilles heel the last couple of years, which is why it kind of surprised me that Maryland's interested in him. But I mean, that said, he's a volume scorer. He fills it up, and Maryland needs guys that can shoot the ball and, just put the ball in the basket. So, I mean, if they got him, he's a guy that's going to come in and contribute. Is he really going to help tremendously with the ball handling situation? Probably not. But again, Maryland simply needs guards and guys that can put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to think right now, is Turgeon just going out and say, let me scoop up every combo guard I can get my hands on? It seems like that's the game plan right now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way to me. It's kind of odd to me too that Turgeon was a point guard in college, kind of a pass first point guard, but he's to date at least it seems like his thing is combo guards. And and I had some people tell me today, they're like, oh, Romello Trimble's not. First of all, let me just say, Romello Trimble is the best guard in the DMV and at the high school level. I don't think there's any doubt about it. That said, I know you probably think this. I think most of the people that watch these high school games religiously, night in, night out, would probably say it. But I mean, whether people call him a point guard or not, he's not really a true pass first point guard. I mean, he's a scoring guard. So at some point, you'd think Maryland needs to get a true, floor general, a guy that's gonna, set up the offense and get guys looks. And I'm not sure that Romello's that guy, Mello Trimble's that guy, and I'm not sure Roddy Peters is that guy. But it's just kind of surprising to me, at least, that he hasn't found that guy yet.
And you look at upcoming targets for the next couple years, and you don't really see anyone on the horizon until maybe 2015.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy that I would put in that category that they've offered was yesterday, and that was Brian Crawford.
I said, that's still 2 years away. So, um, you look down the future, and we still got a while for maybe a true point guard, but we'll see. I mean, if we can have Seth and Roddy and Trimble all in there at the same time, you would hopefully one of them can change their game up enough to where they're just not a score first type of guy. That remains to be seen, but I guess we have to hope.
Let me address one other thing too, because I had some people ask me, or not ask me, but tell me this earlier today as well, and I had a couple people get on me because I said what I just said about combo guards. Some people were saying, well, combo guards are where the game's going, and guys can just become a point guard. And, I mean, I'll give you two examples. A lot of people considered Trey Burke a combo in high school, even though an undersized combo, but kind of like a Terrell Stovin. A guy who was called a point guard, but was really more of a combo lead guard, that could score it. And another example is Grievous Vasquez. It's easy to say neither of those guys were true point guards in college or before college, but they're going to be, one is, and the other is going to be a good point guard in the NBA. But that's not the norm. Guys like that are one in a million. So to think you're going to get a guy that's not a true point guard and turn him into one, and to just expect it, I don't think that's the way most people want to go about their recruiting.
Yeah, and the one name that really comes to mind thinking of this situation is Rashid Jordan. I really wish that we would have pushed harder for him. I saw him play over the summer, and he was just ridiculously good. I was so impressed by that kid, and he can score, but he's got distributing skills that you don't see a lot in a lot of these kids nowadays, and that's one kid I really wish Turgeon would have pushed harder for. I mean, maybe he saw the writing on the wall that he wasn't coming to Maryland, but that's one kid I would have loved to have seen Maryland pick up.
I mean, I'm with you. Of the point guard, I mean, I pretty much saw most of the guys Maryland was looking at a point guard. I mean, for me, I like Roddy Peters' game, but I mean, I'm with you. I thought Rashid Jordan was far and away the best lead guard that Maryland was recruiting. That said, I mean, I talked to him quite a bit. I talked to him a few times. I think in his case, just because of some issues at home, I think he kind of had wanted to stay closer to Philadelphia, which I think kind of made it where he eliminated Maryland. I know UCLA was supposedly in there towards the end, but like some kids do, I think that was more just for the free trip to LA than actually ever having any thought of going there. But I mean, I think in his case, it was pretty much either St. John's or Temple all the way. And I gotta say, it was a great job too by Lavin to get him, scoop him up at the last minute. Because I mean, that kid's going to be a tremendous guard at the college level.
I know you had one more transfer guy you want to talk about real quick, Mo Creek, another guy who I don't know a whole lot about, but I'll let you speak on him for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, Mo Creek, I mean, a lot of Maryland fans know, he grew up in PG County, went through the takeover AAU system, but, he was highly recruited. Maryland recruited him till the end, ended up at Indiana, had an unbelievable start to his freshman year. Was averaging like 15, 20 some points a game, somewhere in that area. Then had an injury. Then the following year blew out his knee. Then last year blew out his Achilles, missed a whole season. So this was actually his first full season in college as a junior, redshirt junior. I mean, that said, this kid can shoot the ball lights out. He's one of the best shooters I've ever seen at the high school level. He's got the skill. The question is, can he come back from all those injuries? This was his first time playing a full season in 4 years. But that said, I've talked to a few people, that are close to him, and the plan is, he's got some family here in the area. I believe he's got a daughter, and I think the plan is, he'd like to come back home and play out his last year here in the area. The question is, with a full off season, can he get back to where he was his freshman year? I don't think anyone knows. I don't think many people expect it. That said, he could be a guy you take a chance on. So he'll be an interesting one to watch because from what I've heard, his plan is definitely to come back and play his last year here in the area, and he's eligible immediately. So someone to at least monitor.
All right, so what I hear is Maryland needs to keep playing up the fact that people have kids in the area so they can Get more recruits. First Avon, then we're talking Antonio and Mo Creek, who've got children in the area. So let's keep playing that card, Turgeon.
Hey, whatever gets them in the program.
All right. Let's. Obviously, we've had kind of an offer frenzy the past couple of days, especially a couple of offers. I know me and you were both very surprised about. I guess first, let's go ahead and talk about actually a prediction you made on the show last time you were on, Trey Campbell. I mean, what? Obviously, I was really surprised by the offer. I always liked his game and thought he was a good player. Didn't exactly think he was the type of player that Maryland would go after. But I mean, what do you think of that offer?
I mean, I'm kind of torn. Like you said, I mentioned him last time I talked to you on here. I'm personally a huge fan of his game. And like I said, I've seen him, both at St. John's quite a bit and with Takeover quite a bit. And, while some coaches seem to think he's the kind of point guard that's, going to push the ball, get to the rack, I thought last summer with Takeover that wasn't his strength. But then with St. John's, I thought he was really good at, controlling tempo, getting guys good looks, which is kind of more Turgeon's style. So, if he's been watching him mostly with St. John's as opposed to Takeover, I'm kind of not that surprised by the offer. He's a good shooter. He's long. He's a good player. That said, he's still not in that true point guard mold, pass first, floor general. So I was kind of surprised by the offer just because, they've already got Romello Trimble. But, I mean, I think he's capable of playing at this level. So I don't think that's an issue. I just think it becomes an issue of, is his skill set just like a guy they already have? Kind of like Phil Booth and Romello Trimble. Same scenario.
I mean, I saw him a lot this year too, and it seemed like when I saw them a lot, they had Darian Anderson handling the ball most of the time. When I saw them, had him playing off ball, and he was just spotting up shooting threes in the last few games I saw him in, which he knocked down. The one game against Gonzaga I can think of in particular, he probably knocked down 6 threes just in that one game. So I mean, I was really impressed with him as a shooter, which is definitely something the Terps need horribly. But is he a lead ball handler? I think that's my question.
Definitely not. Well, and then the other question becomes too is, let's say he did recruit him to play the two guard spot. Well, if that's the case, now all of a sudden you've got two undersized guards that aren't the most athletic guys in the world. It's going to be tough to compete at an ACC Big Ten level with two guys. Even though they're incredible shooters, with two guys that are both shorter and not as explosive as say some of the other teams.
I mean, I think the one other thing I wanted to say with that is some people have speculated that maybe Turgeon is starting to worry about Dion Wiley a little bit. I mean, do you think there's any truth to that?
I mean, whether it's anything but speculation or not, I mean, I can certainly see how people would think that. I mean, you already got an offer out to a two guard who's one of the most physically imposing, best shooters in the class, and then you offer a AAU teammate of his who's bringing the same skill set to the table. So, I mean, but then again, they had offered Phil Booth as well. So I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. But I've heard some stuff now about Wiley that I think you've heard too, that he really likes Syracuse a lot. The question is, will they offer? I mean, who knows? I mean, everything I had heard last year was you wanted to stay in the area, but these are 18-year-old kids and things change.
Offer, I think honestly, I was even a little more surprised about was Chinanu Onuaku. Am I saying that name correctly?
I believe so.
Okay. Hopefully I'm not messing up anyone's names, but I know someone else that I've seen probably 4 or 5 times this last year. Someone you've seen, and defensively, I was impressed by his game defensively. Offensively, still a big work in progress. I mean, I was just telling you, he's very similar to Dodd, but definitely it doesn't have the offensive prowess that Dodd has quite yet, and that's saying a lot because Dodd doesn't have the greatest offensive game either. So, I mean, how surprised were you by the Onuaku offer?
I mean, I think like you, I was just absolutely stunned. I mean, he's probably one of the best defensive big men in the area. I mean, that said, offensively, I just don't know that he could contribute much of anything at this point. Um, and the other question too is, is he going to be a center? Is he a forward? A big forward? I mean, it's just, and like you say, he's really got no offensive skill set, so it's just kind of hard to determine, what exactly he is and what he's going to do. I just don't know. I was kind of shocked, as I think you were.
Man, the one thing I keep going back to with both of these kids is, how committable do I think these offers are? I mean, if they put on the table saying you can only you can only commit if this, and this, or
well, I mean, I'll say this. I mean, both came, after workouts directly from the head coach, which usually means it's a committable offer. So, I mean, it certainly seems like they're 100% committable offers. In 14, I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot. I know one guy that's been mentioned is actually, give me a sec. I think I have to look up his name even. Um, no, the one guy, he's a wing who right now is still 13, but he could move to 14. He was playing with DC Assault in Pittsburgh. Um, Dante Grantham, that's his name. He's out of Martinsburg, West Virginia. Played there for 4 years. I believe, I want to say, led them to a state title this year. Maybe this year and last year. But I believe for 2013, his main offer is West Virginia. And I talked to someone who said Huggins was pretty much following him everywhere at the Pitt Jam Fest last weekend. But I've heard that, with him playing with DC Salt, kind of just like Dodd last year, there's a real good chance he could prep. And I've heard that if he preps, a lot of schools, including Maryland, are very interested in him at the wing as a 2014. I'm pretty much with Marcus. Last year, actually, at a tournament where I got a good look at Rasheed Jordan as well. Um, the Takeover 16s were actually playing Rasheed Jordan's 17 under team. And honestly, I thought the most impressive player on the court in that game was actually Martin Gieben. Um, he's got some great post moves. He's got a good mid-range jumper. He's your typical Euro big man, and in a lot of ways, that's a good thing. They're all very disciplined. Shoot the ball well. So I actually think Gieben, he's a little undersized to play center, so he'd probably be a big forward. But I mean, he's definitely got the skill set to play at the high level. And he had a tremendous year as well at Goretti. So I think his recruitment's just going to pick up big time here over the next couple weeks. So no, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he got an offer. That said, there's some other big forwards out there who I think they'd probably take a look at too. So maybe they still like their chances with some other guys, and they might not offer quite yet. But I mean, from what I saw from Gieben last year, I didn't really get a chance to see him in high school this past season. But I believe he was first team all conference. And I mean, like I said, I thought he was great with Takeover 16s last summer. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if he ended up getting an offer.
We'll see. Hopefully, Maryland can get their things together for 2014 and get a couple of these kids to commit sooner rather than later. One other kid I know I wanted to talk about was John Crosby, who I've seen a couple times and I really like at the point guard position. Obviously, I think, again, not necessarily a true point guard, but I think he has a little more ball handling skills and maybe some of the other guys we've brought aboard. That's a kid I know you've seen a lot. What do you think of him?
I mean, I like Crosby. If we're talking ball handlers in 14, one guy who, is in Baltimore, well, actually he's on the Eastern Shore, who's actually, I believe, running with Baltimore Elite this summer, who I like a lot, and is Corey Holden. I can't remember where he plays. He plays for a team out in the Salisbury area during the school year. And I mean, he's got some of the best handles of any guard in Maryland. He's starting for Baltimore Elite. They don't really have a lot of size or depth, so I heard they struggled out in LA last weekend. But that said, I think Corey Holden's definitely a guy to look at as far as ball handlers. Obviously too, like you said, you've got Crosby. I don't know. I saw him play quite a bit last year. He's good. There were some guards on his team that I actually thought were, probably just as good. And for whatever reason, Maryland, just doesn't seem to be that hot on him. So I'm not sure that an offer is going to come. But like I said, another guy is Corey Holden with Baltimore Elite out of the Eastern Shore. I think he's a guy who's going to pick up a ton of offers this summer.
All right, guys, you heard it. Corey Holden. Go look up the name. It wouldn't be a conversation between us if I didn't bring up Ben Bentel. I'll let you go ahead and give your Ben Bentel plug real quick.
I mean, at this point, whatever, I give up. Maryland doesn't seem to have much interest. I mean, at this point, I don't think an offer is going to come. I mean, now that they've offered Onuaku, they think they've got a good chance with Okanobo. So at this point, my dream of Ben Bentel getting an offer is probably never going to happen. That said, one local school, Georgetown's been pretty interested. He did visit Georgetown for the Syracuse game back in March. So there are definitely some big schools showing interest in him, but Maryland at this point, I don't think is going to be one of them.
All right, well, I guess that will about wrap up our conversation for tonight. I just want to thank Scott for coming on. Go follow him at Twitter at Terrapin Nation. You'll get lots of good information, inside information on what Terps are doing and when. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks. We'll see. All right, good night, people.